very warm welcome. You're watching CNN News 18 Global. I'm Akanksha Swaroop. I begin the first segment with our top focus on Britain. The wait is finally over as King Charles's coronation is scheduled to happen in just a few hours from now. Charles, along with his wife Camilla, will be crowned at London's Westminster Abbey in a historic event involving thousands of military personnel in a miles-long procession through central London. The coronation ceremony will be the most glorious display of pageantry seen in Britain in decades. And one of the key moments of this ceremony will be when the king sits on the coronation chair, dating back to more than 700 years, while being given his regalia. Now, King Charles will be the 40th reigning monarch crowned since 1066. Prince William and his wife Kate Middleton will also be in attendance at the historic ceremony, while Prince Harry will be attending the ceremony alone, sans his wife Meghan Markle. The day of splendour and formality will feature customs dating back to over 1,000 years. The United Kingdom is pumped to witness this coronation, and unable to contain their happiness, dedicated fans have also even camped outside the Buckingham Palace. Yet, this coronation is happening at a very significant timing, keeping the controversies surrounding the royals in Britain in mind, and also the cost of living crisis that is already plaguing the United Kingdom. Here's a report.
But no, I'm sorry. I've had somebody here once, a man here who didn't like the royal family. I felt like saying, if you don't like it, don't come here then, you know. I mean, don't come and moan. But yeah, well, people do and people don't. You can't make them, can you? I mean, I love them, I adore them. But then I haven't got any brothers or sisters. And I think that made a difference, really. I sort of followed them. Princess Anne is a toddler, really. Prince Charles a bit older. So really, I do enjoy what I do. Yes, I used to cut out photographs of him and Princess Anne in newspapers when Charles was obviously the elder one, and he was about, should we say, 4 or 5, and Princess Anne was about 2. So I've been doing it a long time. But I enjoy it, to me. I mean, some people smoke, some people drink, some people go on holiday. I don't do any of those things.
And it blew. I was with my mum and uncle, and they blew the windows in, and we all came out. And believe it or not, a while after, the Queen came along to look at the damage, and she gave us a wave, and I waved back, and there's a little picture up there somewhere where that's where I was when I was 3 years old, so that's where it all started. The plate is one of my favourites, with the old Queen Mother waving, and behind the trophy there is, I can't see him, I forget their names half the time, the old age catching me up. But William and Kate has always been one of my favourites. The 2 lads, when they were together, they were my favourites, and they still are married. It brings me closer to them, really, because it represents them. I'll keep a record of all my letters, and it covers all the family, even the children. So the children get to know me as they grow up. So, you know, for me, recently I had a letter from the King himself, now the King, and that is a private one.
Yes, I am. Yeah. Oh yeah, I love it when the royals have got big do's on, as it were. I do hope one day I see the next 2 on the throne. I would like to see them, because they're a different ball game, aren't they? They're young, they're modern.
The first time I ever came for a royal event was for Fergie and Andrew's wedding, and that was in, I think, 86 or 87. And actually I was pregnant at the time, but I came anyhow. And then after that, I came for Will and Kate's wedding, and Harry and Meghan's, and the Queen's couple of her jubilees, some of her birthdays, and it's just, nobody does it like the British, the pomp and the circumstance. And like I said, we don't have anything like this in the States. I'm just happy to be here and be part of history. I mean, this hasn't happened in 70 years, and it's like, I mean, every time you see pictures of a new monarch, the first thing they show is the day they were crowned. And I mean, for us to be here and see him immediately afterwards.
Clearly a lot of excitement over there among royal fans. But let's get you a report from Ground Zero, and for that I'm joined in by CNN News 18's Sanjay Suri, who's joining me live along with royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Many thanks to you, Sanjay and Richard, for joining in. Sanjay, thousands of people are of course queuing up to watch the streets, hoping to catch a glimpse of King Charles III. What's the mood on the streets of Westminster?
Well, if I may add to some comments that the kind lady shared with us a minute back, and sometimes it rains. And the first question that is hovering over the mood is how many clouds there will be.
Right.
And considering that the weather forecast is for rain almost from the start of the procession to the end. So rain all day, not necessarily very heavy rain predicted, but some rainfall all through. And this is one weather forecast everyone hopes will be wrong. But of course, we have a very, very substantial number of compulsive royal fans in Britain. And the first one came and camped 10 days before the big day. And since then, many others have been lining the road and they have camped. And the police have warned them now that they need to clear their tents by 6 a.m. tomorrow, so that people will have more room to stand right in the front and watch the procession go by. And clearly, there's a very, very significant number of people who are out there on the streets and lining the route. And this is almost now inevitable at every royal event. There is a question now whether the support for royalty and for monarchy particularly has been declining. And clearly, there are indications of that. But certainly, if there are statistical or poll-based results in that direction, we will not see them before our eyes. Along the route of the procession, there's going to be plenty of people around and cheering.
Absolutely. So far, there was only news of controversies clouding over this event, but now it seems the rain gods are doing that as well. Richard, let's also talk about the investiture ceremony to the coronation big lunch as well. That is going to mark the first weekend in May, full of celebrations for the new monarch. Give us a brief guide to this historic ceremony and what to watch out for during the procession.
Well, most particularly, Akansha, the procession starts at Buckingham Palace, and the King and Queen go in the Diamond Jubilee coach, not the gold coach. They use that on the route back to Westminster Abbey, past the Mall and Admiralty Arch and Whitehall, and then there is a procession and the recognition whereby the Archbishop of Canterbury and others ask the congregation to recognize the monarch. He's presented with the Bible for the first time. The monarch says a prayer which he has composed himself. The Archbishop of Canterbury gives a sermon. This hasn't happened at a coronation since George V in 1911. And subsequent to that, we have a series of very important rituals. There is the oath, whereby he promises to defend the Protestant Church and show justice and mercy and defend the law. There is the sacred anointing, whereby holy oil is placed by the Archbishop on the hands, the breast, and the head of the monarch. Subsequent to that, there are a variety of costume changes too, which is important to mention. Subsequent to that, you have the various regalia, swords, spurs, armfuls, the orb, scepters, and so forth. There are quite a few of these presented to the monarch. Then there's the crowning, where St. Edward's crown, which weighs, by the way, nearly 5 pounds, is used. And then the king is enthroned. You have the rejoicing, and there'll be gun salutes and bells will peal. And then there's the homage. And unlike the 1953 coronation, what we have with the homage here, the Archbishop of Canterbury does homage on behalf of the church, and the Prince of Wales does homage personally, and then the congregation and those watching are invited to participate. This has been quite controversially handled. All the idea was that people might shout out, "God save the King," or words to that effect. Then subsequent to that, we have the anointing, the investing, and the crowning with St. Mary's crown, but not with the Koh-i-Noor, of Queen Camilla.
Right.
Then the King and Queen will take communion, and then they will retire to St. Edward's Chapel. The King will take off the extremely heavy St. Edward's crown and wear the imperial state crown. And they will then process out of the abbey. They'll be on the chairs of estate when they play the national anthem, and then they will return in the gold coach.
Right.
This was first used in 1762 for the service, for the coronation service of George III. And there will be the appearance on the balcony later.
Which is,
Also,
of
there
course,
will be a
which,
military parade
when we talk about that appearance in the balcony, there's going to be a lot happening over there. That balcony moment is going to be very symbolic. And in fact, even the crowning moment is something I'm going to delve deeper into with you and Sanjay. But in the meantime, since you talk about this extremely elaborate and opulent procession, let me also take our viewers through what these royal preparations have been like. Because remember, as Richard has just pointed out, Britain's royals are one of the few royals, in fact, in the world who still are using the royal symbols, as was also pointed out by Richard. Let's play out that report for you in terms of what the royal preparations are like at the moment.
He's wearing his grandfather's, and how wonderful. You know, we've got this wonderful, sustainable, eco-friendly king who's reusing something rather than having a new glove. And obviously there's so much work that goes into the glove. It saved all that. And it's also a little bit of heritage, a bit of looking back to the past for our very modern king.
There must be a reason no one's using them.
This glove was made in our Worcester factory, which was the gloving area of the UK. And as you can see, the beautiful gold embroidery. And it's made out of kid. And you can see the lovely crown here. And it was made in 1937 for King George VI. And this is the duplicate, because every time there's a glove made for the coronation, you make two. And I think that's a just-in-case factor. So we have this one. It's on loan from the Worshipful Company of Glovers. But it's wonderful that we've got it at this really important time. So it would probably have been a couple, 2-3 days work at that time. But the big thing would have been choosing the skins and also keeping it all secret. You know, it would have been a specialist team working on it. And I know one of the royal gloves, the manager of the factory actually slept in the factory for a week with the royal glove.
All right, so elaborate arrangements taking place over there. Sanjay, let's come to the crowning moment. Is it true that Camilla, the Queen Consort, won't be wearing the Koh-i-Noor on her crown?
Yes, that is correct. And quite clearly, that was a very carefully thought out decision. It was the decision of King Charles. Apparently, he had a say in this. The whole ceremony and the whole event should be kept free of controversy. and nothing like the sight of the Kohinoor to start new controversy. And this would be a controversy, particularly with India. India is by far the largest member of the Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth is very precious to King Charles, as it was to Queen Elizabeth earlier. We have a population of about 2.4 billion in the Commonwealth, and we know that a substantial part and the significant majority of that are Indians. If India were to be upset as a member of the Commonwealth, that then would, well, talking clouds again, have brought sort of pretty dark clouds over the ceremony. And the attempt has been to keep this clear of controversy, keep it ceremonial, keep it graceful, and keep it as a historic occasion where the attempt is to bind Commonwealth countries together.
Right.
And that has been a matter of some controversial origin. After all, the Commonwealth is countries that were once a part of the British Empire.
Right.
It has a colonial legacy. The language today is different. It's no longer called the British Commonwealth, it's called the Commonwealth. It's described as 56 independent and equal countries. But it is precious to the palace, precious to King Charles, to keep that bound together, to keep it close, and above all, to keep it going. Hence, no Kohinoor.
Absolutely. Richard, if I could bring you in on this, Camilla's gesture of not wearing the diamond for the coronation is going to be a big one. Don't you agree so? And does this in any way now indicate the reshaping of new political sensibilities of the new Britain?
Oh, absolutely, Kanchi. Yes, there's no question about it. The very last thing that the royal family wanted was, because the Indian government has laid claim, as I understand it, to the Kohinoor, and if you look back in its history, whereas there are a variety of claims, the point is this would have been controversial. It would have taken the tension away from the monarchy as a focal point of unity, and also the headship of the Commonwealth, which is very important. I mean, it is not automatic that the British royal family is head of the Commonwealth, but that the British monarch is head, but there isn't an alternative, really, because if you had a rotating chair, then you could perhaps end up with a dictatorship. And if you had the Secretary General, a bureaucrat, changes every so often controversial, neither is appropriate. The monarch has a cachet, and this is the cachet you're seeing in what is going to, I think, be a magnificent event tomorrow, because what you also have, 203 countries, I think it is, represented, it's been reported, and you have, apart from Russia, Belarus, Venezuela, there are a few who apparently haven't been invited. Facts are that it's an extraordinary soft power gathering, and this is, I think, very significant.
Right. Sanjay, even at this late stage, there is no confirmation about which members of the royal family will be on the famous balcony of Buckingham Palace after the coronation service. How symbolic will that balcony moment be in terms of sort of displaying the internal family dynamics?
Well, it's fairly well known. We know who will not be there. Harry will not be there. Prince Andrew will not be there. So who will be there principally? And this is what really royalty, the monarchy now is. It'll be the Charles and Camilla, and it'll be William and Kate, and William and Kate's little kids. Then there is Prince Edward, the other son of the late Queen, and people sometimes need to be reminded that he's around. He's not a very particularly high-profile figure, to put this gently. So it will be really the King and Queen. It will be the Prince of Wales and the Princess of Wales, their kids, and that should be about it, really.
Sanjay, how much of the lawsuit has overshadowed the coronation? Sanjay, can you hear me? All right, we'll try and reconnect with Sanjay. But Richard, if I could talk about this controversial aspect as far as the lawsuit by Harry is concerned, that seems to have cast its shadow over the coronation ceremony. Having said that, Harry's presence is also going to be pretty much watched out for.
Well, I think, Akansha, there was a lot of discussion of this in the lead up to the coronation, of course, and the Sussexes and their various attacks on the monarchy, the Oprah interview, the Netflix docuseries, and also you had his memoir Spare, all those interviews, a whole series of things. I mean, they've had a lot of publicity. Essentially, as you get closer to this event, the Sussexes show or no show becomes far, far less important. I mean, Harry apparently is coming, as far as I know. I mean, we don't know. He hasn't actually arrived, as far as I know. But I mean, he'll be attending, he said, and then he'll be leaving, and that will be that. I don't honestly think an enormous amount of attention is going to be given to this on the day itself and subsequently for a while. But then, of course, the Sussexes do get a lot of publicity, and one must bear in mind they get their work through the various royal. The attacks on the royal family, quite frankly, because Netflix, Spotify, and Random House, the reason they have contracts is because they're royal.
Right.
But they're very bitter.
Absolutely. And let me end with Sanjay's thoughts, because Sanjay, right in the beginning, had mentioned about the popularity of the monarchy dipping down during King Charles's time now. How significant is the timing of this coronation? Because let's not forget, it's not just the monarchy which is bearing the brunt of controversies, but it's also the cost of living crisis plaguing Britain at the moment.
We had an ITV poll suggesting very recently that the support for the monarchy is about 52%. Now, every poll of this kind has to be viewed a bit of critically. We have to consider the timing, methodology, various issues, particularly comparing one poll with another. This certainly suggests 52% and suggests that a couple of years back, it was 70% plus. The number of polls are indicating a slide in popularity, and the slide in popularity, particularly for King Charles, seems quite rapid, considering he's only just become king and it's still not quite coronation day yet. In fact, the whole coronation, the build-up, the grandeur, the ceremony, was intended to boost royalty. Right. Perhaps it will, but it has also had a contrary fallout. People are beginning to question whether this is a little too elaborate and a little too expensive at an estimated £250 million.
Right.
And this is when there is a question about cost of living. It's not a question of £250 million simply being transferred and that will make people's lives easier. It's the symbolism. Absolutely. The symbolism was intended to enhance royalty, monarchy, place them on a higher pedestal than they were otherwise through all the coronation celebration. But it is also having some sort of a counter effect. People are beginning to raise questions about the monarchy through the whole coronation that, speculatively speaking, perhaps may not have arisen earlier.
All right.
This certainly is focusing the debate on the monarchy and particularly on the cost of maintaining it.